We spent some time over the past couple of weeks talking about social media bans for kids, the situation here where we're taking phones away from kids in school in Quebec. Australia, of course, implementing really the first strict social media ban for kids under 16. And when we talked about it, I think at the time we thought, well, something needs to be done. This seemed like a step in the right direction. But we're beginning to find out that maybe this is not going to be as successful as originally thought. A couple of studies are out now. And in the aftermath of Australia implementing this social media ban, it might come as a surprise to find out that some Canadian parents don't think this is necessarily the be-all and end-all solution. It doesn't really focus on the actual threat at hand for kids. One of those parents is Carol Todd, whose own daughter, Amanda Todd, took her own life after she became a victim of sextortion and relentless online bullying in a case, of course, that made big news back in 2012. Carol Todd is on the line. First of all, thank you so much for being with us today. I know it can never be easy to talk about this, but I will also point out that you were one of dozens of protesters who took to Parliament Hill last week to try to push the federal government to retable what we call the Online Harms Act. So let's start with that. That act, which is designed to, we think, protect kids, right? That's the whole idea behind this. Why is it not the best way as far as you're concerned?
Well, for one, I actually just saw that article, and I personally don't like to be deemed as a protester. I have always called myself a parent advocate in making change for what's best for all kids and all Canadians, right? And so being on the Hill last week was a chance to meet the ministers and also to share with them our thoughts that an Online Safety Act needs to be in place in Canada. We're falling behind with other countries, of course, with what they're doing to protect kids, right? And that includes, screen time, social media, devices, what's happening in schools. There's a whole myriad to add to that conversation.
Yeah, it's interesting, though. Again, as I said, most people, when we talked about a full-time ban, we assumed, I guess without really thinking much about it, that would be a good place to start. You say that a flat-out ban without any additional measures is not only not a great idea, but you're saying could entice teens to take part in other social media activities.
Well, when we talk about the word social media ban, we have other conversations that we need to have that are really important too, right? Like the regulation of the big tech companies, about oversight, about education and awareness and learning, all those things. And the first question I always ask when I start this conversation to another person is, what do you think social media ban means, right? Does it mean to you like all social media in the whole wide world? Or just like in Australia, it's 10 applications.
Right.
And so, the feedback that I get is from young people. And of course, they're going to be upset that it's taken away. But in the same breath, they say, I can find ways to work around it. And so you'll have children, as I said before, who follow the rules, that their parents give them and say, nope, I'm not going on it. I'm not touching it because it's a rule. And then you have others that say, don't mess with me. I'm not going to follow that rule. I'm going to find my way around. And as research is coming out of Australia, I think on the weekend I saw an article, 60 to 70% of kids are circumventing the regulation. And that's 60 or 70 kids out of every 100. And so when you think of that, I want to see more research and more things that come out of it. But as I said, we need, continued research. We need better regulation. We need more education as student, parents, and community. We need to keep teaching about these regulations and laws. And maybe we're focusing so much on the word social media ban. We need to have a conversation about, how do we keep kids safe better in other ways. And you know what? Having in Ontario, I read an article about bell-to-bell restrictions on mobile devices, which includes cell phones, right? And that's a plus because, being in the education world, I've heard teachers that say without a device to distract the kids and, notifications, they're paying attention more. They're getting their homework done, so they have more time in the evenings to be with their peers and hang out and do things, maybe hopefully a non-tech kind of activity. And so those are the pluses, and we need to also focus on what screen time means and the effects of overuse of screen time, maybe not necessarily social media all the time. And we're looking at more the 0 to 5 years and what screen time does to the development of social emotional learning, brain development, peer relationships, dopamine hits, and on all that. And so that's preventative, right? So because one day those 0 to 5s are going to be tweens and teens
right.
that are using devices. So all those things come into play also. So I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Yeah, you did, but you're describing, a long-term solution. Typically when we want to fix something, right, we think, we'll do this and it'll be a short-term fix and we're done. You're describing something obviously completely different, right, which is we need a long-term approach. This may be something that would require years as opposed to months.
And you know what? Amanda died in 2012 and we're in 2026.
Right, and we're still talking about this now.
And we're still talking about it. And we had 14 years to create a long-term approach, and we didn't. So we need to create that short-term approach and long-term approach. But if we create a short-term with banning social media, is it going to work? Where is, it's only 10 applications. What about all these other applications that are harmful to kids? Are we going to talk about them? And if not, why not? So, those are my critical thinking questions that maybe we all should be thinking about before we all jump on a quick bandwagon. Yeah. And you know what? I've been doing this for 14 years, and I always think critically. I don't jump on something right away, but just to clarify, I'm definitely not a protester. I'm fine. An advocate.
I completely understand that. Yeah. And I will, and obviously the advocacy is appreciated. I would just ask one thing with respect to, it's one thing to talk to the government who, would have had the right idea with this Online Harms Act. What do you want to see them do? I mean, if this is not just a be all and end all solution for them, what are you recommending that they do? Is it a kind of a combination of everything you've just discussed? What should be the next step?
Well, there's a campaign for safer online spaces right now, and the 5 pillars that we want to see are duty of care, a regulatory advocate. We have the duty of keeping youth safe, and I would say continued research in this area. And we also have to talk about regulation with the AI chatbots, because youth and even adults are using chatbots more, and chatbots are even coming into the toys that children are being introduced to, and chatbots are in our homes with Alexa and Google Home and everything, right? So we need to have a regulatory standards on that too. So those are the main things that we need to focus on right now, and that would cover that, that online safety and that communication that parents always need to have with their children.
I would just ask you as a final question. You said, it's been 12 years, since your daughter, passed. And I wonder now, are you at least hopeful when you deal with, there are other people, of course, with you as advocates. Are you hopeful that things will change?
I've always been hopeful, and I'm a little bit more hopeful now. I mean, I was hopeful when I saw an Online Harms Act tabled, but then I was saddened to see, frustrated when it got prorogued and died on the table. Yeah. So now there's been many advocates, experts out there who want to see an Online Safety Act so that we can at least meet the standards of other countries, and so that all those pressures will hopefully make our government say, hey, yeah, we need to do this, and we need to do this effectively and efficiently.
I thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it. I hope we can chat again.
Okay, thank you.
Take good care. Bye-bye now.
All right, bye.
iHeartRadio is throwing it back
2010s, the decade.
to the days of huge hits and unforgettable anthems. A non-stop stream of the biggest and best.
Drake, Rihanna, Beyonce, Katy, Gaga, The Weeknd,
And more. All your decade-defining favorites, all in one place.
Hi, it's Katy Perry.
Hey, it's Bruno Mars.
This is Kesha.
Find 2010's The Decade on the free iHeartRadio app. Preset the station so it's always one tap away.